My name is Natasha and I am 40.
Hi, I'm Katie. I am 42.
I'm Carrie. I'm 46 years old.
I'm Lizzie. I'm 38.
Jayne Pink, 55 years old.
Welcome back to Interwovxn's 4th season, featuring conversations centered on life's essentials and on celebrating and supporting women in middle life. We are thrilled this season to exchange support with Melnick & Melnick SC. Melnick & Melnick SC is a law firm of women dedicated to supporting small business owners. They manage legal issues with collaborative solutions, cost-effective strategies, and up-to-date communications. Melnick & Melnick SC values women and entrepreneurs so much that in 2017, they started She Stands Tall, a community of women who learn from and inspire each other. Visit melnickmelnick.com and shestandstallmke.com for more information and to learn about future events. Today's episode features a chat between Jayne and Liz as they talk about their upbringings in the UK, meeting each other and finding friendship in the US, their empty nest transitions, intercontinental service, women's rights, and the importance of having a laugh. A huge thank you to this season's featured musician, Gina Barrington. Remember to hit subscribe so you can be the first to know about new episodes, and visit our website to join the Interwoven community, receive newsletters and event information, access all of our resources, and to connect with us on social. Find us at interwoven.com. That's interwovxn.com.
Hello.
Hi, Jayne.
Jayne Pink, or these days Jayne Pink, 55 years old, only just. Pisces, born in London. I'm an honorary Yorkshire woman. I know that's a bold statement. I'm a mother to Max, who is 22, and Georgina, Queen of England. She is 20 and married to Michael. I should say I also have a lovely stepdaughter who's more like a friend. So that would be Chloe. She's living in London as well. Dr. Chloe Barrett Pink. She's very clever. Dance has been my background, and theatre. That's me in a nutshell, I suppose.
So Liz Bickley, contrary to the strong Midwest accent like Jayne, not originally from here, also originally from the UK and born in Yorkshire, but grew up in the northeast of England. I have also 2 children. My oldest is my daughter. She is 21 and is a senior at Loyola in Chicago, just about to graduate as a teacher. And my son is 17 and is Jayne's biggest fan. I'm a Virgo, so September birthday, and I like to think that I am the descendant of a Spanish pirate.
So we met each other through high school. Yeah. Max came home and he said there was this lovely girl who'd come to school with an English accent, and I was very excited. I think I invited you over to a cast party. So I think we had more fun than the kids.
I think we definitely did. Yeah, one of the perks of having high school students, and certainly one of our fondest memories, was meeting you guys through that connection. And yeah, we could not wait for the shows, more for the Pink after show than the actual shows themselves.
We had a front porch full of about 80 pairs of sweaty Converse boots, I think, when all the kids... Is it probably very important to mention that we bought Liz and Scott's house? When I say it's our house...
It's a communal home. We started to transform it, and you certainly finished transforming it. I know it's taken an awful lot of work, but it has good bones, I feel.
It's got great bones.
Good soul.
Yeah, Michael calls this the house that COVID built, because we moved in March. Hang on, when was COVID? It's all a blur.
Yeah, 2020.
So that's when we moved in. And then, I mean, what else are you going to do? So Georgie, my second one, she's at school in Scotland. She was in Berlin last week. I wanted to give them the opportunity to travel, to go away, which is, I think I've said this before, sometimes it feels a little bit like you're on a big island here, because, you basically, to get anywhere, you've got to traverse either the Pacific or the Atlantic. It's a big deal. And when you and I were little, I don't know if your mum and dad and people used to do this, but they'd just stick us in the car and they'd drive to Spain, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You'd stick the car on the ferry, no safety belts, we were rolling around in the back of a Volkswagen. Yeah. So I'm really pleased I've had the chance to do that. And Max was at school as well in London, actually, and in Scotland for a year too. He was in Glasgow.
So when I think about, we left the UK because I wanted the kids to see that the world was not that big, but to experience the world. They grew up in this tiny little village. There were 80 people at their school, including the teachers, and we took them off on this crazy adventure to the desert, to the Middle East, and lived in Dubai for a couple of years. And they went to this 3,000 person school with, 50 different nationalities. But to your point then, when we came to the US, you realize how big this country is, and that, there's a perception people in the US don't travel a ton, but actually you could travel all the time and still not experience everything that exists here. So I do think it's important then to instill back in the kids this sense of adventure and sense of travel and spontaneity. And it is a little bit harder to do here because you just can't get anywhere easily.
So the things that also come, though, with launching the children in another place is, you and I have a level of confidence about that because we had to travel for our work. Because I was a ballet dancer, Liz, you know that, but I was a twirly, as we say, for 14 years, and we were in a touring company. So you learn pretty quickly. Without pre-mobile phone, driving your car back from Aberdeen to Yorkshire or to London after a show on a Saturday night, and no sat nav, no maps. I think I probably had an AA road map in the back of a paper copy in the back there. But you kind of learn how to just get on with those things, and when your car breaks down or when you run out of petrol because you didn't bother filling the tank up and just stuff like that. So the other element of that now is that both the children and yours, so independent. They can lose a passport, get their passport back again, lose their cards. Remember last time Ashley went away? Was it her whole purse got stolen somewhere? Or
yeah, we've certainly had those experiences. But yeah, they're pretty. I worry more about Ashley, although she gets on with it. Josh, I don't worry about at all with that stuff. I feel like he's better than I am. Some of the byproducts of kind of the life these kids have ended up having is that ability to be independent and practical and need to get some things done that perhaps other people don't always have that chance to experience.
Right. They're very lucky. But there's been many a time where the first thing I've woken up to in the morning will be a message from one of them who's overseas, and either, they're very capable now, but something will have got lost, or they need to get to an emergency dentist, or all kinds of stuff that just makes you wake up and go, oh, now what? I scooch downstairs and I get on the computer to put some money in an account on the quiet just so I can get them out of trouble. And
yep. Oh yeah, that sounds very familiar. Yeah, I don't have to do that. I don't think I will have to do that as much with Josh. But actually, Josh is me. He is fiercely independent, almost unhealthily the other way. Whereas Ashley will absolutely, my ear hurts. Can you book me an appointment at the Minute Clinic?
They want their mummies. So you bought your first house, though, Liz, when you were very young.
I did. So I had, I guess, somewhat of a challenging. Well, I had a very privileged upbringing, but the period of time from being kind of 13 to 16, I had some pretty big life events that happened that meant when I finished my GCSEs, which I guess is the high school graduating, I made the decision to go to work and not to go on to higher education or college. So I got a job and I bought my first apartment when I was 17. At the time, it didn't feel like a big deal, but when I live in the world we live in now, and with kids to your point that age or older, I get that it was a big deal.
And I suppose it must have set the bar for you, because you just grow from there, don't you?
Yeah, look, I've been really lucky, and I've ended up having a career that's allowed us to travel around the world and to have some amazing experiences, but certainly was not the traditional route. And I think it's really interesting here in the US because I think that there's still a huge value placed on education and degrees, and I support that. It's not that I'm at all against that, but I think there are a couple of different paths. I don't think that's the be all and end all. I also think here in the US, it's a really interesting dynamic that is less on what did you study, but where did you study? Which again, I think is getting better. I have seen it get better, but occasionally I see, people are just looking at where did someone go to school versus what did they study.
Also, when Max was applying to drama schools things were very much changing on the change. And, he's a fairly, to use that word loosely, privileged, because it depends, how you define that as well, because he's a really hard-working chap as far as his craft is concerned. But I remember telling people that he would be probably doing a conservatoire program. He did go off to Scotland. He decided to drop that. And some good friends of ours, they couldn't quite fathom how was he going to function on this planet without an undergrad degree, a bachelor's degree, even for starters. And it kind of threw me into a bit of a tailspin, because I always knew what it is I wanted to do, from the age of 5 years old. It wasn't even what I wanted. It was just that's what I was going to be. I was going to be a ballet dancer. No question. And I took it for granted that I was going to get a scholarship, and I did. And then I'd love to go to the Royal Ballet School, and I got into the Royal Ballet School. It wasn't effortless, but it was a direct path, and I didn't have to struggle with what am I going to be? How am I going to do it? I think there's so much pressure on young people now to define themselves. So he's always just wanted to be an actor, and he's, very happy doing that and working very hard. And maybe, this is his time now. I don't know about Georgie, but she's coming into her own. But when I retired from dance, for the longest time, I wasn't quite sure what to call myself, because I'd only ever defined myself as that.
As a dancer,
I remember a lady knocked on the door. We were living just around the corner from here, and she was doing a block directory, and she wanted to write down husband's name, wife, children, their ages. And for some unusual reason, she wanted to write occupations down, which I found a little bit intrusive. And I thought, I've got to tell her I'm something. And I said, this was 18 years ago, something like that. I said, I'm a housewife. And she said to me, I can't write that down. And I said, why not? I said, I work really hard at it. I'm really good at it. I don't get paid. Does that mean there's no value on this?
The pay's crap.
The pay is crap. So, defining yourself like that. And then I'm starting to sort of come back round if we're talking about middle life. And again, not to be competitive, but I'm older than you, Liz. So I beat you to that. That's my badge of honour. I'm starting to sort of come back, not into my own, but sort of find other ways. I've got a job title at the moment, which isn't something that I've had for 20 years, because people used to ask me what I do. And I used to say, I sprinkle fairy dust. That was... And that would just sort of intrigue them for a bit. But
I think that's all about self-confidence, though, and kind of having that self-worth and belief, because the flip of that is I've worked all my life. I've worked the whole time that I've had children, and I've been incredibly critical of myself for that whole period of time around how does this impact my children? Are they suffering? And blah, blah, blah. Now I can sit back and say, actually, the only person who missed out was me. Being a working mum or not being a working mum, as long as you're a good mum, you're going to raise people. But whether you're in a job, not in a job, whatever the job, you are very critical of that. I think you're right. There is so much pressure around what are you going to be? I say to Ashley and Josh, I'm still not sure what I want to do when I grow up. I'm still figuring that out. And to your point, how wonderful if you can have that, you just know, and you have that direction. I don't think Josh knows what he wants to do when he grows up. I think Ashley comes in my family from a long line of commitment to service. Teaching for her was a good option in that sense. And it was interesting because my whole family are teachers, and my sister and I were absolutely the generation that were like, no way. But we both are very much still service-minded. Everything I do has been with health systems and healthcare around the world and access to healthcare. So I still had that service mentality, but I wouldn't have wanted to be a teacher. So even for her, I think that's a comfort that there's something that she's drawn to.
And we'll be right back. Hey, Rebecca here. We're so grateful to have you in this space and hope that you feel the same. If you find value in the work we are doing, please consider becoming a supporting member. We would love to keep this going with your help and hope in return to support your journey into and through middle life. For more information, go to interwoven.com/membership. Thank you.
You model that though as well, and so does Scott. So people do things like that, I think, quietly in the UK, but there's also an expectation because of our welfare system, I mean, which is horribly stressed and under pressure. But the idea that you can just turn up at a hospital or a doctor's and you will expect to be treated, I think people don't engage in quite the same way, not necessarily from a philanthropic point of view. When you talk about service, you'll get the village bake and people that will do a sale for the church or, something like that. But here there are opportunities, which sounds ironic, but it's not actually when you embrace that bit, but there are opportunities to try and do something useful all of the time. And then when we first came, I actually felt a little bit righteous about doing something that was useful. And I had to sort of get with the program that actually it's okay to feel good about that. And I couldn't understand that you would ask people for money for things. I just thought that was really bad manners, fundraising, because, we've got an arts council and so everything, most things are, state funded for us, weren't they, when we were growing up. I didn't pay for school whatsoever. I had a full scholarship because the local community were proud of this young lady who was going off to a fancy ballet school. So, that's all taken care of. But yeah, I'm very inspired. Most of my friends do something really good and I'm getting better at finding out about it and not apologizing for doing it. I know that sounds a bit back to front.
I hear you. I think it is really hard and some of it's our kind of proper Englishness. You don't like to ask for anything. And to your point, as people who've always kind of been fairly independent and got on with things, I think it is a weird concept, but it is actually one of the things I love about this country. And yes, you're right. I think a chunk of that is as a result of the benefits system and access and lack of access. But I also think there's something in this country, and we talk about it, we recognize it. There is a level of pride that I sometimes think we're missing in the UK now. And I see it play out, if you go to any kind of sporting event or event, even the recognition of the national anthem and standing up to celebrate our veterans, we've lost almost some of our values, I think, in the UK. And some of it's been because of the huge amount of diversity that exists and almost being afraid to not represent everybody, but almost by doing that, we represent nobody. That's such a shame. And then to your point, for me, the two things that I've always tried to find ways to contribute towards have been women and girls, and how do we continue to elevate the roles and opportunities that they have. And that's played out in lots of different ways all around the world. I did work in Saudi Arabia on helping getting women to work, and some work in India on keeping women at work once they were married or had children.
That was quite boots on the ground, though, wasn't it, for you? You were actually frontline.
Yeah, in Saudi Arabia, so interesting. Obviously, there, a lot of people will know generally women don't work, but they are highly educated. So a lot of women go to school, go to university, have numerous degrees often, but generally didn't work. That is changing. And some of that is because of the culture and the way women are viewed. But some of it's actually the way women are viewed is that women are put on this pedestal of being the matriarch and the person that we should protect and look after. It actually wasn't quite as kind of submissive as I thought some of it was. Now, certainly some of it was, and some of it was not healthy. Imagine that you're in a country and you're saying, okay, we want to get these women to work, and you find employers that say, yes, we want women to come and work in our retail malls. You make that match up. You spend time with these families, educating them on why they should let their daughters or their wives go to work and what that could mean. Then you get to, okay, now we're going to get these people to work. Oh, women can't drive, so we need to organise transport. Well, we can organise transport, but by the time we've paid for this transport, actually these women aren't going to earn anything. So we need to solve the pay gap. We get these women finally to these big malls ready to go to work. And guess what? There isn't a bathroom that serves women in any of these malls because the facilities have been built as such that they only have male bathrooms with urinals. So it was so fascinating to see kind of all of these different hurdles that you had to, and different kind of fundamentals that you had to solve for. And I remember a couple of years afterwards, my son was saying, it's something about not being able to make a difference. Like, why should I do this? Because I can't make a difference. And I said, I fundamentally disagree with you, Josh. You absolutely can. And I talked him through this situation in Saudi Arabia. And I said, now, 4 years on, women in Saudi Arabia can drive. Did I make that happen? No. But was I part of a pebble in a pond that continued to have a ripple effect? Yes, I believe I was. And I talk a lot when I talk to people about women in leadership about, hopefully we're not throwing pebbles in a pond anymore. We're throwing dirty, great rocks. But you can make a difference.
In your own small way, it's totally not futile.
No. So tell me a little bit, since Georgie's gone, I know Max isn't completely gone, but how have you and Michael kind of adjusted to your newer world? Because that's certainly something for me that
we were talking about this yesterday. We had a phone call with a friend of ours that I got to know. Actually, the first time that Dracula, the ballet, was performed in the US, it was performed in Atlanta, and that was 1998. And I came out for that performance. Michael had been working here for a month, and in fact, he just proposed to me. So I was flying out to Atlanta. I was all excited to see the show, and we met this lovely lady called Shirley. Anyway, we were chatting away with Shirley last night, and we've sort of stayed connected all the way through. And it just became really clear that, I talk about the children all the time because it's absolutely my world. It's the best thing I've ever done. We kind of live to work because of the schedule of the performances and the productions. And also now I'm at Renaissance Theatre Works, which I'm loving as their artistic associate. But we can't ever go away to do anything or to have that downtime. Lots of these things actually bind Michael and I together because I'm really interested in the ballet company. So we talk about that all the time, and we talk about work all the time. We're usually too tired to have any other interests. I love writing. I'd really love to travel more, but that's the other thing. When you live such a long way from what you call home and family, when we do travel back to Europe, it would be to go and visit my mum and dad in France, which, it sounds idyllic and it's wonderful to see them, but we don't always get that holiday. So I could say sometimes the quiet is deafening in the house, when you've had the children around.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of establishing that we need to sort of try and make some time to do something else, do something new. I'd love to go to South America. I don't know when we're going to do that with my two beauties in college. Well, Max potentially going back to London. I'm going to have to come and work for you in your house, Liz. I'll do third shift. I don't know. So we are adjusting. We muddle along. We're kind of a real team, but it's been theatre, forever. I've known Michael probably since I was about 14 years old. I used to sort of watch him on stage. He's a little bit older than me. But what about you with not having Ashley around so much?
Yeah, I think I've talked to you about this. I feel like that whole transition of a child going to college was just a really badly kept secret that nobody helped me prepare for. It was like the opposite of, when you're pregnant and everybody tells you their story about what happens when they went into labor, and of course, when it happens to you, it's nothing like anyone described. I feel like the whole college thing, nobody prepared me for. And I really struggled. It was overwhelming in terms of being so excited. And this is everything you've been working towards. And, the can't wait to see what happens with, I just dreadfully missed her. And still do. I still, she's a senior. I don't know that she'll even come home. I think she might be moving on to the next thing. And that I still find, I just miss her. Everything about what she's doing is exciting. We're a big part of each other's lives. Like you and Georgie, we speak every day. I am just as excited for Josh, but in some ways even more apprehensive because we have an amazing relationship, as you know. But we won't speak every day. I know we won't. That's just not who he is. And I know I'm going to miss him dreadfully. And to your point, Scott and I have spent time on what does that mean for us. And I think we've tried to get a little bit more prepared for that. We love each other and we spend time together and we do things together. But that idea of, oh my goodness, just us.
I know. And then I feel sort of guilty about
I don't know that I like you that much.
I really admire, though, it seems to me that you and Scott make time for fun. It seems like you do make time to do, just fun things and get out on the boat and travel a little bit when you can. And
yeah, I do think we try to. Life is hard though, isn't it? It's tiring. It's just tiring. We had a whole weekend last weekend where we did nothing, and I'd been traveling and I was kind of just exhausted. I got up on the Saturday, went to the gym, did some jobs. We met our friend for lunch before he disappeared back to Australia. Then we came home and Josh and I said, should we binge watch the whole of the new season of Outer Banks? Scott said, I don't know. And we said, well, that's what we're doing. And so we got home, I put a film on and Josh said, I thought we were watching Outer Banks. I said, no, I need a nap first. I need a nap.
Right.
Like an hour and a half. He said, you were out, which I never do, but I knew I was exhausted. And then we watched Outer Banks for like 7 hours, ordered takeout.
Oh my God. Okay, well done.
And similarly on Sunday did very little. And Scott said, gosh, I feel like we just wasted the weekend. I was like, I feel like this was the best weekend I've ever had.
It's just what you needed. I know, because that time is so rare. So I just got back today from work. I got back about 4:00, and like you, I can work from home if we don't have performances at Renaissance. So my birthday a year ago, I was hanging around in their offices because just for the hell of it, I used to teach them Pilates now and then because there's such a great group of women. And I was on the board of Renaissance Theatre Works. And then Susan said to me, what would you like for your birthday? And I'm not good at my birthday. And I think I probably just cried on her just because somebody asked me what I would like. And then I said, I want to work here. So about 2 weeks later, they offered me a job. I'm there now. And I feel like they kind of take me seriously and they're interested in what I have to say. I've been, ironically, non-verbal. I know that's hard to believe, but having been a dancer, it's not that you don't have an opinion, but you express yourself a totally different way. So it's a really sort of good time to be there and not be some sort of, screaming, empowered feminist. Not that there's anything wrong with at least two of those, words there. But I'm learning such a lot with the work that we're doing with the plays, like the last one, Cost of Living, and you're talking about access for people. Just learning about how everyone should be able to be a part of something. The play rather featured the two characters with a disability. So we had actors with a disability as well. You look at the way that the theatre's designed, you look at how people move around a building, you look at what's available, and then you look at the audience members that are coming in. I think it's really stimulating my grey matter. I mean, that's a good thing because as I spiral into physical decrepitude, it's quite nice to keep the grey matter sort of stimulated.
So I'm going to steal something from it. I did another podcast recently and the lady on there asked me a really interesting question, caught me off guard a little bit, but she said, if you could sit down and have tea with two people, who would it be?
Go on, you tell me yours.
The two people that I picked were, this one won't be surprising to you, the Queen.
Right, yes.
I'd sit down with the Queen. And for a couple of things, when I think about like role models, she certainly for me, I feel like she led by example. I feel like she always had respect. She was incredibly curious, which I think was kind of a lesser talked about trait of hers. She was obviously incredibly hardworking. I actually think she embraced change pretty well, considering the change that occurred over her reign. And then just her sense of purpose and duty and commitment. And she did all of it, I thought, with just amazing poise. So she was a big one for me. And then the other one is Jacinda Ardern, who was the New Zealand Prime Minister. I struggle a little bit sometimes with kind of female role models because I think we have such an interesting kind of dichotomy of people who are great leaders but have almost done it by behaving. Sometimes they've become a great leader, but they've had to get there by behaving like a man, which I have an issue with. And I think Jacinda was, I'm trying to remember, she talked about in her exit speech, she said that one of the criticisms that she'd faced was that she wasn't aggressive enough or assertive enough, and that somehow because she was empathetic, it meant that she was weak. And she talked about, completely rebelling against that because she refuses to believe that you can't be both compassionate and strong. And I think that's a great message for everybody, not just women.
I remember Max Georgie went to a Montessori school, fantastic school. It was a really happy, gentle, kind place. But one of the teachers, because Max used to like to do the opposite to the other children, he wasn't difficult. It's just, he's like me. He just has to deviate. He had to go the other way. Can't help it. And we were having a chat one day and she said to me, well, he needs to be doing X, Y, Z. She said, you need to grow a spine, which is what the teacher said to me. And I could remember these hot tears behind I could have thought, don't let her know. And I thought, just because I was listening to him and letting him do it his way, she told me that I had to grow a spine, that would be, she did phone up later and apologize actually that same night. But my two people, there's a fantastic opera and theatre director, and it's Phila Deloyd, and she also made the first production of Mamma Mia. She became very, very famous. Her background is so broad and she's clever and witty and really creative, and she's a really good leader. And apparently she's just fantastic in the rehearsal room about how she manages people and makes them confident. And then the other person, the first name that sprung to mind was actually Stephen Fry, the actor and writer and journalist, because he's a brilliant intellectual and he's kind and funny and curious.
Yeah, and he supports Mind, doesn't he? The mental health charity. He's done some amazing work for them as well, and been another one who's been willing to be really vulnerable, I think, and talk about things that people didn't want to talk about. So
this is really not off subject. I'm addicted to Formula One at the moment. That's my new thing. I'm watching the program. What is it? Formula One.
Drive to Survive.
I don't know where I am, but I'm obsessed with Lewis Hamilton now. And again, he does lots and lots of really, really good work. And I think he can only do it because he's vegan and he gave up alcohol. Otherwise, I suppose you'd want him to, really, wouldn't you, if he's driving Formula One?
I love Lewis Hamilton. So I have been a Lewis Hamilton fan for his entire career, and we are big F1 fans.
I'm so into it.
Yeah, what's essential?
I would say, if it's, say, a material thing, I would say it's a passport. They have the freedom to have a passport and to be able to vote. Just health. You start to get a little bit older, and the odd, not scares necessarily, but you're more mindful of things. And actually that comes back to when the children leave home. You see that cyclical passage of time as well. And you think, okay, I'm on to the next part of my life. So their happiness and their health and having fun, having a laugh. I like to laugh.
Yeah, what's essential? I think for me, the word that came to mind was grace, like giving myself and others grace, assuming good intent. I think we live in a world where people are instantly looking for a negative or instantly looking for an ulterior motive. And I like to believe on my good days that everybody has good intent.
I think people do.
I think they do too. I think this is a really tough world that we live in now. And then to your point, connection, I think that I personally put myself at the bottom of the list for anything. To your point, it is amazing what just having dinner and laughing and chatting can do for your soul and can do for your well-being and can do for all of those things. So I think giving yourself grace and allowing yourself time to be with people is...
Did we talk about your Yorkshire puddings as well? That's a fairly...
My Yorkshire puddings are yes, a necessity.
This is pudding. I tend to waffle on, but never assume that you know anybody's story. And I'm always amazed that, I've been walking around sort of on Broadway, and then I'll go into a theatre, and then someone will come into the theatre and I'll register that I saw that person maybe in a coffee shop half an hour ago, and then they'll come in for an audition for something, or I'll see them and I think, oh my God, what just happened? Or it's like when somebody sits down at a piano, or when you see somebody that's asking for money somewhere outside the supermarkets, you don't know what that person's story was. Just, I suppose, take a breath.
Yeah, look around.
Take a moment.
Yeah, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't, you talked a little bit about Renaissance and the amazing work that they do. I'm involved with an organisation in Milwaukee, Walker's Point Youth and Family Centre, and we work with homeless youth in the city, and then we work with kind of older youth in helping them get housing. My daughter is trained to be a high school history teacher in inner city Chicago and has experienced all sorts of fairly scary and things that she's never experienced before because she's had somewhat of a privileged upbringing. But she would say to me, Mom, the hardest thing I have had to do my whole life is go to school. Like, that's been the only thing every day that's been expected of me. I need to get up and I need to go to school. And sometimes that felt like hard work. And for so many of the children who live very close to where we all live, that is not the first thing they think about when they get up in the morning. They are just trying to survive, whether that's supporting their families, their parents, their siblings, a job, whatever it might be. You know, Milwaukee is an incredibly diverse, amazing place to live. It's why we picked here to live. But there's some pretty extreme variability in people's experiences. And we have the opportunity to your point earlier, very easily make a difference.
I'm really proud as well of our children. And this is, I suppose it is essential. Something that they've learned is that they've got a voice. And I've learned a lot from them in these last 4 years in particular, because given my age group where I come from, so East End of London, right in the city of London, which was really diverse, and I just took it for granted. But our kids spoke out, didn't they? Do you remember they went and they protested, and they're teaching Michael and I better ways to use language about, you know, words that are now outdated. I'm sure that will all be very fluid. It'll be different next week, but thank God, you know, for them.
Yeah.
So yes, so maybe we've done a fairly good job, Liz. There's still work to do.
Something that I say to people, they say, "What, you know, you've worked in the same industry all of your life." And I've said, I learn something new every day, and every day is different. And for as long as that's the case, then I'm pretty engaged.
You're the tops. Da, 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 da.
You too, Sunshine, you too.
Bye, Liz. I love you.
Thanks for joining us today. We invite you to give us a star review and to hit subscribe for a new empowering conversation each week. Visit our website where you'll find our newsletter, event dates, and other amazing resources. Visit interwoven.com, that's interwovxn.com, to sign up today. This show's copyright is summer of 2023. We want to thank Melnick and Melnick for their support this season. Our Interwoven producers are Teresa Kopak, Rebecca Jankowski, and Jen Gilmore. All original music was created and performed by Gina Barrington.